you go to Craig's for great food, great service, great ambiance, and a hug.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of my favorite things about your restaurant is it feels like family in a way. You're listening to Studio 22.
Welcome to Studio 22. I'm your host, Will Meldman, with my amazing co-host, Brock O'Hearn.
It's good to be amazing. Thanks for that.
Try to think of different adjectives every time.
Yeah.
Very positive attributes. How was your weekend, Brock?
It's cool, man. Yeah, went and popped down to South by Southwest. Adrian Grenier had a event that we went to, and
Vince from Entourage.
Entourage, yep, yeah, awesome guy. He's doing a lot of stuff in the sustainable world, and we had a lot of fun. And flew back last night with 30 minutes to spare to go hit the Lakers game. So popped over there and had a good time.
Hell yeah.
How was your weekend, man?
Very good. I actually practiced what I preached in our Presley episode when I said I stayed in on Saturday nights and wrote comic books.
Amazing.
Living up to the nerd tag I'm giving myself.
That's great.
Have you seen any good shows lately?
Reacher on Amazon, which is a lot of like a big action show. That's been a lot of fun, and finished up The Last of Us the other weekend. It's kind of sucks there's not more episodes, but that was a fun one too. What about you?
Yeah, that documentary we watched with Morton the other day about ancient civilizations and the caves in India that, you know, are carved into like perfect smoothness and perfect measurements and all that, like 12,000 years ago when we were supposedly hunter-gatherers, you know. Wow. I love all that stuff. So I forget what it was called. Like, I don't know.
Probably something with the word ancient in it, I think.
Right. Yeah, definitely ancient.
And then we had the Oscars too.
I mean, how spot on were we with, you know, me essentially predicting Brendan Fraser would win for The Whale, and then you all over Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yeah, and well-deserved on both of them, man. Brendan Fraser is incredible, and to see him come back this strong is really cool, man. I've always been a big fan of his, and Everything Everywhere All at Once, too. Just that movie itself blew my mind, so it was really cool seeing that. It felt like, you know, the Oscars were back again.
100%. And the proof is in the pudding on our predictions. You can go check out our other episode, Top Films of 2022.
We have it on video. Yeah,
we have it on video evidence. And speaking of celebrities in the entertainment industry, our guest today is no stranger to the limelight and LA and entertainment. We have Craig Susser of Craig's American Restaurant.
Ooh.
Or like, as we like to say in Studio 22, amazing Craig.
Oh.
Amazing.
I got an adjective.
There you go, man. There you go.
All right.
Welcome to our Studio 22.
Well, thanks for having me. And I'm just sitting here watching greatness at work.
Hey, man.
This is kind of fun.
Takes one to know one, I would say.
Oh, absolutely. So speaking of the Oscars, did you do anything for it? I know sometimes you host events or...
We had an Oscar event, which is always fun and never gets old. I always kind of walk around the room and think to myself, you know, when you're first opening up a restaurant, you never think that these are the kind of events that you're going to host. So very grateful that the town has embraced us and that they consider it a home and it's a place they want to celebrate. So it was fun. I thought the Oscars was really good, and it was really nice to see Jimmy Kimmel up there because he does such a good job of being a fan, and it's really nice to see.
He's been around a long time, right? Definitely a pro.
Well, yeah, it's just nice to have somebody, hosting the Oscars that actually appreciates the people and the work that goes on. It's fun. It's supposed to be fun, and it's supposed to be entertaining. And I think this Oscars kind of hit that note, which is nice. I
mean, I like how he kind of addressed the controversy of last year's as well. Kind of just like, I feel like it would have been weird if you didn't bring it up, but he kind of just made a little joke about it and moved on, and that was it. And, you know, Brock and I kind of talked about it on a live stream, but all those moments of like Harrison Ford and Ki Wai Kwan reuniting from Temple of Doom and all that, and him winning for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I mean, there were definitely, and Brendan Fraser, like we talked about, Jamie Lee Curtis. I mean, there were Michelle Yeoh. There were so many moments. Right.
There's people that are committed to their art and committed to what they do for a living. And, if you think about the longevity of some of the people that we're talking about, and it's great. And they never gave up on themselves, which is, so heroic when you think about all the moments in our personal lives where you can choose to lay down and stop. And, I think it's amazing.
I've got this quote that I always read when I was like 15, 14. I put it on my ceiling because I learned, or this is what I learned at that time, was that your subconscious is most awake or most active right before you go to sleep and right when you wake up. So I like imprinted this in my mind, and it said, a quitter never wins and a winner never quits. And I just live that and breathe it. It's probably like the thing that pops up in my head all the time. So
I think for sure we are exactly what we think, and there's nothing in our way except us.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you can get out of your own way, it's the biggest thing, best thing you can do for yourself.
For sure.
Yeah. And even Michelle Yeoh kind of gave Don Lemon a shout out and like, don't let anyone tell you you're ever out of your prime, which I appreciated. That was pretty good.
Absolutely.
So take us back a little bit. You were the host at Dantana's for...
I thought we were going back to where I was born.
Hey.
Anyway.
No.
Now I got to know.
No. That would be,
further back.
I think that'd be boring. All right. So let's see. In an acting class, going to college, I'm a waiter like every other person in LA, and kind of making my way through. And I've got a job at Antonio's, a Mexican restaurant on Melrose, one of the first high-end Mexican restaurant places. And, there's little Craig, and he's wearing a black, vest, and he's got one of those big, colorful Mexican bolo ties. And I'm selling, upscale Mexican food. And there was a guy named Rudy there that was actually a really old school, great waiter that first started teaching me the art of hospitality, right? It's not just the mechanics. So learned a lot there. And then we would celebrate, the acting class would celebrate a lot at Dantana's. And that's how I first kind of learned about Dantana's. I'd go there once in a while as a customer. I didn't have any money, but I would go there once in a while. And I stopped in on a Saturday night, just have a beer on my way home. And Jimmy, who was the maitre d', and Mike, who was the bartender, who is quite literally the best bartender I've ever met in my life and influenced so many people in this town. They were like, hey, have you ever been a bartender before? And I was like, nope. And they're like, perfect. And I'm like, what? So they're like, look, it's easier if you don't know anything for us to teach you than if you come in here with bad habits. So they sent me home with literally an empty vodka bottle and a shot glass. And they said, fill it with water, be able to pour a shot without looking, and then let us know when you got it. And so I started at Dantana's in 1986 as a waiter and a server. It didn't go particularly well. 6 months of like basically getting my brains beaten in by the regulars, like, who's this kid? And he doesn't know anything. And I'm like, I'd walk up to a table and I'd say, hey, can I get you anything? And they'd be like, F off, where's Brock? Like, F off, where's Will? Like, where's my regular waiter? And that was hard to take, right? So you literally feel like you can't do anything right. But it was just it was a very regulars kind of restaurant, and they wanted what they wanted. And I slowly learned as a waiter and a bartender what people really, really, really wanted. And so 1986, I'm working a little bit as an actor. I mean, enough to kind of like keep my foot in the door. I've got a really good job and meeting a lot of amazing people. I mean, the people that used to come in and out of Dantana's back in the 80s and early 90s was just like an eclectic crew, but a lot of fun. And that's where I really learned the backbone of the hospitality business. And then in 2003, I was asked to take over as the maitre d'. And I don't know why or how or what, but it was like literally dropping a fish in the water. I don't know how I know how to do it. I was just like, bang, I got this. And I was really good at it. Yeah. And I loved it. And I still do. And that really went on and continued my education in the business. Then I kind of took on some managerial duties and stuff like that in 2008, 2009. And then eventually I was going to buy a piece of Dantana's or all of it. And Dan, without going into details, decided to do something else. And in 2010, he sold it to somebody else. And I worked there for a few years, for a few months, and realized that it was time for me to open my own place.
I apologize for skipping ahead. That was just where our paths intersected. So I'm like, oh, that's That's the beginning.
Yeah.
I appreciate that additional context.
Yeah. So there was a little bit more emotion to it. My dad had passed away. Dan was like a second dad to me. The future that I kind of had planned for myself didn't really work out, but I don't know. Look, the universe sometimes has plans for us that even we don't know. And I mean, thank God all that happened, because Craig's wouldn't exist. So in 2010, I decided to leave, put together all of the money that I had. My family threw in some money. We had about half, went out to some select people and who said, yeah, you can do this, and raise some money. And actually, I remember signing a lease in August, and we opened January 12th, 2011. And people have asked me, like, what's significant about that date? I'm like, that's the date I didn't have any more money, so let's open. It's like, and that's it. And we opened, and you know, everybody likes to think it was like a rocket ship right from the get-go, and it wasn't. It was incredibly busy in the first 2 or 3 months, but we had a lot of growing pains, like every restaurant. And that's why whenever a new restaurant opens, everybody says to me, did you go? Did you go? And I'm like, no, I like to give them 3-4 months, because it's really hard to get an entire crew working together as a unit. Now, just imagine if you were working fry, he was working pasta, I'm working grill, and then it's your day off. Now you've switched positions. Right? So you got to get everybody to make everything exactly the same way. And the waiters have to be working in concert, and the door has to be working in concert. They don't even know where the forks are, where the pepper is, where it's not hardwired yet. So all of those things that we take for granted aren't yet. It's like a ballet. It's like a frenetic, crazy ballet, but everybody knows where they're going to be. And everybody knows how to get by everybody, right? So right in the beginning, everybody's bumping into each other. They don't know where to go. They don't know what everything is. And not everybody's making everything the exact same way. So it takes a long time. And then I can't say that I knew how to do this, but I knew enough to give the restaurant room to grow, as opposed to what I thought it was supposed to be. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like, I knew that things weren't perfect. The food wasn't right. Some of the drinks weren't right. Some of the service wasn't right, but we just kept working on it. And I just kept saying to people, stick with me, I got it. Stick with me, I got it. I hear you, I hear you, I hear you, you're right. And slowly we started making those changes, and people started noticing those things. And they started, you know, understanding that I wasn't happy either, right? And that was kind of the biggest thing. And then slowly but surely, like, you could start to feel the ship get righted. And then all of a sudden, I'd say like in September or October of that year, I just felt it. And I was like, oh, now the place has a little swagger. Like, oh, okay, it found itself. And it wasn't exactly what I had intended. It was just a little off. It was like that 10% that gave it that, like, you know, the people were suggesting dishes, and we were going, okay, well, let's try those as specials. And then they would land really well, and I put them on the menu. But I didn't necessarily intend to serve that in the beginning. But then I realized I want to be that restaurant where you go to get your favorite thing, not where I'm teaching you how to eat. It's a very different philosophy.
And that's what it sounds like, right? You're not the authoritarian there demanding every little thing. You're rolling with the punches and taking suggestions from everyone there that's working there and has good ideas. I love that.
Right.
You're open to new, innovative stuff. I mean, that's great.
And some people couldn't even, you know, articulate it correctly. They just knew it wasn't right. And I knew that, like, we just kept searching and searching and searching. And look, the proof is in the pudding. Like, people are either coming back and getting more, or they're not. And once you start to realize that you're hitting the mark, that's when you know you're on the right track.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of my favorite things about your restaurant is it feels like family in a way. It feels like, you know, there's so many regulars that enjoy going there all the time. So every time I've been, I've ran into friends. You see interesting people, you meet interesting people. There's great conversation, and the food is phenomenal every time.
So I like older, middle-aged, younger. I like people that have money and people that don't have money. I love people that are just gotten to town and they haven't really done anything yet. And then there's some tourists that come into town. They may have heard about the place. Like, it just is a nice mix of people, ideas, walks of life. You got accountants, lawyers, actors, agents, producers. Yeah, it's a really interesting thing. And they're all eating very accessible food. It's just upscale comfort food. It's not like we're not pushing the envelope on anything. And by the way, I have nothing but respect for restaurants that do push the envelope. And I do know that people go out for that experience. And some of those chefs are some of my closest friends. Yeah. And I'm amazed at the work they do. But that's not why you go to Craig's. You go to Craig's for great food, great service, great ambiance, and a hug. And you have to deliver that.
Speaking of ambiance, right? When we did our episode with Randy Gerber, coming out of nightlife and setting up bars and clubs and all that, I mean, Craig's has like a very distinct feel and atmosphere, and exactly like you're describing, right? But Randy had kind of mentioned the difficulty in setting that up, from the furniture, the lighting, the sound, like what are you listening to, music. How did you get that right? Yeah, how'd you get that so right?
Well, Randy and I have had conversations about this, and believe me, I drive the hosts and the maitre d's nuts about lighting and music. So you have to kind of know your audience, right? You don't want heavy hip hop running at 6 o'clock at night, because that's not the crowd, right? If you've got a bunch of 60-year-olds and 70-year-olds and some tourists in there, you want to be running more accessible music.
Right.
And then as the night goes on, you can kind of ramp it up, and also with volume, right? So it's softer in the evening, early evening, and then it gets a little louder, and then all of a sudden at 9:30, it's pumping, right? And all that looks accidental, but it's not accidental, right? And then the same thing with the lighting. The lighting's got to look good. It's got to make everybody look good. Women want to look great because light's hitting you from several different angles. Everybody loves that, the restaurants that have that like stark lighting, and it hits the table and it flushes up on your face, but we don't really look good that way, right? It hits us with like shadows and things like that. So that being said, that's their style, and that's totally cool, but that wasn't what I was going after. So what we were going after was, do you remember restaurants in New York where you'd go down the steps and you'd walk in and you'd go, how long has this place been here? And it just felt like there was history.
Like Cipriani's?
Yeah, just old school. Like, my dad used to take me to a place in New York called Frankie and Johnny's, the 21 Club, like old school New York joints. And we were like, well, what would a 1940s New York restaurant look like in LA in 2011?
Wow.
Right? Without being a cartoon. So how do you figure that out? And then try to also use materials and a look and feel that isn't going to look aged out in 4 or 5 years. I mean, do you remember the whole River Rock thing when everybody did a shower in River Rocks? It was like a thing like 10 years ago. And now every home you walk into has got River Rock. You're like, oh God, I remember that session. Yeah. It's like, so you have to you're also designing it for longevity. So I had a great architect, a guy named Jay Charles, who did a great job, did a lot of homes. And so what we were doing was an extension of your living room. It was basically walking into your home, but it was a restaurant. And we literally made these decisions. And then the brick was specific because the brick feels like old school New York. So they were very, very conscious choices. And the booths, the color of the booths are like fresh. And like I came from Dantana's, it was red and it was dark and it was like a lot. And to kind of get me from there to here, it took some playing, right? But you realize that Cadillac blue booth is really kind of fresh and unique and still gives you that nostalgic feeling.
Yeah.
And I mean, like when you open a restaurant, you got to understand, like, gosh, you take some beatings. I mean, you really take some beatings because people come in and like, it's not exactly what they were expecting. It's also new. It's the only thing I can liken it to is like when you put on a brand new pair of shoes. They look good, but they're not yours. And you don't feel good. And you're uncomfortable.
I like that.
Right? And all of a sudden, like, everybody's like, yeah, but it's not like that. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course it's not like that. But it'll be like this. You know what I mean? Like, keep wearing them. They'll get comfortable. Like, you're just like, come back. Just please come back. And then, I mean, one of the biggest beatings I ever took was through Jerry Weintraub.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was 6 weeks in.
Rest in peace, Jerry. We love you.
Oh God, I love that man, and I miss him because he was honest enough. And your dad was at that meeting.
Was he there?
Yeah. So Jerry, I'll tell this story. This is great. So Jerry was there with the whole family on the Saturday night before Oscars, and it was our first Oscars. Oh, and so we didn't really know how busy we were going to get, and it got big. It got really busy. The bar backed up to the tables. The sound panels hadn't been put in yet, so it was really loud, and the food was really kind of, admittedly, hit and miss. And so Jerry comes in with the family. It's the first time he's been there ever since the place opened. 10 o'clock the next morning, I get a phone call from Susie. Jerry wants to see you. I'm like, cool. When? Now. I'm like, now? He's like, now. I'm like, shit. So I do the only thing I can think to do. I call your dad. I go, hey. He goes, already got the call. Come grab me. I'm like, I'm coming to grab you? He goes, you're coming to grab me. Your dad gets in the car with a French dip. I go, what's that? He goes, it's a French dip. I go, we're going to need a French dip? He goes, we're going to need a French dip. So I'm like, it's 10 a.m. I'm like, oh God, this is bad. So we go into the room and we sit down and Jerry's like, how are you? How's everything? It's good to see you. You know, I love you both, blah, blah, blah. And then boom. What fuck are you thinking? And it just goes down a list of everything that he didn't like. And I got to admit, he was wrong. It was a little harsh. It was a little over the top considering it's only a restaurant that's been open for 4 or 5 weeks. But all of those things that he mentioned are all important things. And a lot of that I'm going to attest, I'm going to blame on the fact that it wasn't a finely tuned machine yet. It wasn't that ballet that I was talking about. And that's what the difference, like if you go to a brand new restaurant today and then you go in 6 months, you'll feel a totally different place. And that's just kind of what happens. As long as you're also willing to fix the problems.
Right.
So, but I had friends and people like that actually cared about me and cared about me enough and cared about my success enough that they wanted to make sure that I had no illusions as to exactly where I stood and how other people might be talking about the restaurant, right? And so we fixed a lot of those things, and then we got through the summer. And then also you don't realize when you open up a restaurant in the summertime, if you're brand new, there is no tourists, right? Everybody leaves town. Everybody's, off doing their summer plans. And the tourists don't think to ask for your place because they don't know anything about it. And then also, the other big thing I didn't realize is there's no food to go because you don't have a favorite dish. And you don't think oh, we're staying in and watching a movie tonight. Let's get Craig's to go. Well, why would you think that? You haven't been there or you don't have a favorite dish yet. So all that stuff takes about a year to grow. So as we kind of found our place in September, October, you could really feel it lock in. The crowd started coming back. The vibe was there. It had what I call swagger. And then we had the Christmas season, and then we had the award show, and I was lucky enough to do it. We did an Oscar party for George, and Clooney had one of his first Oscar parties there, and it just kind of it was such an honor that we could host an event like that. And you never think when you open a place, you're just trying to hit a double up the middle, you know? And all of a sudden, you're just trying to stay in business. And then all of a sudden it starts to kind of click. And then one of the other things that really, another turning point of it was embracing people's specific dietary likes, restrictions, whatever it was.
Which has really changed in our culture, admittedly, right? In the last 10 years. I mean, I can't imagine.
So I guess it was 10 years in, and I gotta give a lot of credit to our chef. So Chef Kirsten came on, I would say, in August of that year. So a lot of the corrections on the food started to happen with Chef. And Kirsten is not only a great chef, but he's a great teacher. So in other words, if you're the line cooks, he could teach you how to make it, and then it would stick, right? And part of being a great chef is being a great educator and a great chef. It's part of being a great restaurateur for me is saying, okay, this is what you do as a host. This is how we handle our people. Nope, we don't handle them like that. We handle them like this. It's not, no, I can't do this. It's, yes, I can do it. It just may not be at the time you want me to do it, right? So there's hospitality is done in a lot of different ways. And if it's being done really well, it's being done with what doesn't look like a lot of effort, but there's a lot of effort and a lot of thoughtfulness behind it, right? I mean, that's true hospitality. When you have somebody come into your home, what do you want? You know, you want a cup of coffee? You want a drink? What do you want something to eat? What do you want? That's the level of hospitality that we want at the restaurant. You're entering our home, and how can we help you, right? So, and that is not, it's not effortless. It should look effortless.
In honor of Jerry, I have a quick Jerry story I want to get in, and then Brock, I want to get to one of your questions. My first day of work for Ocean's 13, where I wake up in Jerry's guest house, like guest room, go to the kitchen at 4 a.m., me, my dad, and Jerry. And because this is all in line with like, he cares, but it's a little harsh, right? Mine was more preemptive. He was basically like, he throws some cornflakes in a bowl, throws some milk in, hands it to me. He goes, I haven't made breakfast for myself in the last 10 years. Here you go. And then me, my dad, and Jerry were having coffee, and he goes, look at me. Don't fuck this up. Because like my opportunity is a big opportunity for me. I'm like,
right.
My first job ever, going to Warner Brothers, working there. But you could tell he cared, right? And I love how you told that story, because it's a little harsh, but like he's doing it to help. And I just really always appreciated that about him, is he was definitely always honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, look, he did it to your dad with the early clubs.
Oh,
I mean,
for sure.
I mean, I know he did, and he did it out of like exactly. It was part of Jerry's way, right?
The name of his documentary, right? His way,
right? So it was just his way. He had to beat you up and then watch you make it better, and that way he could also take a little bit of the credit for making it better, right? It was a little self-serving, but it actually got it done. And look, I loved him for it. I miss getting his phone calls, and I miss looking down and seeing, Jerry Weintraub, and thinking to myself, "Oof, which way is this going to go?" Because you never quite knew which way. It was either going to go, "Hey kid, I love you, blah 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 blah. I need this," or the other one, which was like both barrels. And you're like, oh my God, like what happened? Like,
yeah, exactly.
But anyway, they don't make people like that anymore. And I miss that, because those people are self-made.
Yeah.
And they really kind of have a way of doing business. And I look, I have nothing but respect and love, and I do miss him a lot.
Absolutely.
I didn't get the honor of meeting him, but every time I've heard anything about him, it's always been the greatest stories, and how he just lifted everyone up, man. And I love hearing more, because he just, even to this day, his presence carries on with other people, right? And
Can I use 4 little words on this? I mean,
use whatever you want.
Okay,
man.
so here's another great Jerry story. So Jerry's in the corner about to eat dinner, and he's about to take an order, and all of a sudden his hand goes up, and I'm like, oh shit. I'm at the maitre d' stand, and I see the hand go up, and I'm like, oh, this isn't good. So I walk over to the table. I go, what? He goes, this fucking guy says I can't get spaghetti with my clams. He only says I can get linguine. I go, Jerry, I got it. He goes, then why is he standing behind you shaking his head no? And I go, Jerry, got it. I walk away with the waiter. Waiter's like, we don't have spaghetti. You're lying to him. I go, are you a moron? I go, there's a market a block away. Here's $20. Give it to the busboy. Get him his spaghetti. Why are you fucking arguing with him? And that's when a couple of the waiters also realized this is a different place.
Yep.
Right? So it did 2 things. It told him that I love him and I'll get him anything he wants. And it told the servers and the other waiters, whoa, this is the way we do things at Greg's.
Yeah.
Right? We get a lot of customers now that go, hey, can you make duck? Can you make some sort of a special vegan dish? Can you make whatever it is? And I go, yeah, give me a couple days notice and let me know when you're coming back in, and we'll make that the special for the night. And that way it's kind of like people come in and say, oh, I'm in the mood for this, I'm in the mood for that. And it's a way of first honoring them, and secondly, challenging the kitchen, because they always love something new and fun
Yeah.
to make. And then it's kind of an interesting special.
Yeah.
You know,
It makes your experience more personal too. Like you remember that moment. Hey, I remember the time Craig got me duck on that Saturday, and right before I went to the Oscars or whatever it was.
right, exactly.
That's
And,
awesome.
and then the other thing was like, we were talking about dietary restrictions and things like that. And I remember somebody coming to me and, back before Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and all that stuff, influencers and stuff. What influenced was where certain people ate. Okay. So restaurants back 10, 12 years ago, if X, Y, and Z ate there, other people wanted to eat there.
That makes sense, right? Because you're like being seen.
Right.
So
You're
it's
you walk in a restaurant, you're like, oh, he's here, they're here, she's here. Wow. Okay, this must be good.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I'm coming.
Yeah.
So one of those people wasn't coming. And I ran into them on the street and I go, what's going on? And they go, I love you, dude, but I'm not eating a plate of vegetables. I'm a vegan. And I'm like, great, I got you. They're like, not eating a plate of vegetables. I'm like, I got you. Just let me know when you're coming. So sure enough, I get a phone call. I'm coming on Friday. I go to chef. I go, chef, we got to make a vegan dish. And it can't just be a plate of, we got to make a vegan dish. So we start doing some research and stuff. And he does a portobello tower. And it was actually really, really good. Sitting at the front table, eating their dinner. And people are walking by going, what's that? And I go, oh, it's a vegan dish. Don't worry about it. And they're like, no, that looks really good. And then another person ordered it. Another person ordered it. And then we started having one vegan dish on the menu and then two vegan dishes. Now remember, this is 10 years ago.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it turned into a section on the menu. And so that section on the menu made up 18% of our sales.
Wow.
Yeah. Because the spaghetti squash is in there. And
I love the spaghetti.
right, it's like,
Yeah.
but all of a sudden, everybody goes, oh my God, you were an early adopter. Good for you. And blah, blah. I go, no. I was just trying to stay in business. It was just, I was like, whatever you need just to stay in business. That's why I started to make some of these changes. And that's what's so fascinating about our business is you've got to pay attention to what's happening in kind of the moment to moment to moment. It's like Randy was talking about. How do you grab an essence, a vibe, a feeling? You walk into a place and the music's right and the lighting's right and the vibe is good and the energy's great. And then, okay, but we eat differently now than we did 12 years ago. So are you consistently making little changes so that, you're kind of changing with the times without changing who you are, right? And the essence of what you offer, right? That's the trick. That's the hard part.
I mean, I worked in the service industry for years and different. It was, retail. But what I learned from that was, you can sell a product. That's great. People come and buy it. But what the real thing was how they felt, and then, for example, one of them was jeans. So how they felt wearing those jeans, how they felt in the store, how you treated them. They remember those things, and those moments are what they carry on. And that's why they call it the service industry. And you're serving. And what you did is you went out of your way to serve one person, and then it made up 18% of your.
Brock, you just hit it on the head. Any bartender can make you a vodka on the rocks.
Yeah.
Or a Casamigos on the rocks, or anything you're talking about. The difference is how do they make you feel when you get it?
Exactly.
It's the emotion. So that's really kind of what we're talking about. That's the difference between, look, like I said, we've all been to the restaurants that are white boxes, and the chef's food is the primary focus. And I love those experiences, and those they're amazing. But it's not where I want to go 2 or 3 nights a week.
Exactly.
Right? So it's a different MO and it's a different feeling. It's how does a restaurant make you feel? And by the way, and I've heard this a lot since COVID, is like, life's tough enough. Dinner shouldn't be. Like, can we just have a good time?
Yeah.
And can I have something that makes me feel really good, consistent, and I feel like my giving you my business is actually specific. It's not just transactional. It's not just any old body. It's the fact that it's me and you, right? That's different.
Yeah. I mean, that's a true testament to why you have the clientele and the people that come in there all the time. It's you gave them a space to relax and enjoy and laugh, and have a good time. There's never not been a great moment at Craig's, man.
Oh,
truly.
sweet.
But it's true, like I've never not wanted to go there. I've never not wanted to spend time and eat the food, have a Melbourne chicken, like it's always been great.
I literally get that every single time. It's my favorite. It's so good.
Yeah. What for you was, or how was the pandemic for you, and when did you decide that you needed to make a shift or do something, or how was it scary going into that? What was it for you?
Yeah. So, I've talked about it with some people, and I think that there are moments in life that you literally have no choice but to either fold or succeed. And if you don't have a choice, if there's no net, then you're forced to succeed. Otherwise, you're not going to get ahead. So the restaurant's doing really well. It's we're exactly where we want to be. It's got all that energy, all the vibe. Everybody's coming. It's the middle of March, and all of a sudden, like every other business in the world, the brakes stop, and we don't know what's happening. So it's the middle of March, and we get designated as a source for food, right? We're an emergency services, we get designated for that, so we can stay open and at least do food to go. So I decide to keep the entire crew, right? We're not going to lay anybody off, because I don't like it when you say, hey, we're family, we're all in this together when times are good, but then when the shit hits the fan, all of a sudden we're not family, right? So I'm
that alone is a really big decision.
Right. So I decided that we're not letting anybody go. So we're doing a lot of food to go, and I give the kitchen crew and chef a ton of credit. You got to understand, it's the pandemic. People are dying, and they're showing up every day with their face masks and their face shields and their rubber gloves, and they're banging out as much food to go as we would do in a normal night.
Wow.
If people were eating in the restaurant. Because nobody really knows where to get food except for obviously the grocery store if you're making it yourself, or some restaurants. And it's also one of the sweetest compliments I ever got was the fact that our entire day has changed. The entire world has changed. The only thing that's the same is your food and the way it tastes. And I was like, wow, I didn't even think about it like that until customers started saying that.
Pretty mind-blowing.
Then you realize what a restaurant is. There are different points where, look, I'm so grateful for the celebrations. I'm so grateful for the Oscar parties. I'm so grateful for the more high-profile events. But it's when you're commiserating, when times are not good, when somebody's passed away, and you still feel like that's the place you want to gravitate to, then you've built a place that's making a difference, right?
Speaking of passing away, I mean, that's after Jerry's service, where me, you, Dad, and Michael Weintraub, we're sitting there at Craig's, having his favorite martini.
Yeah.
And that's where we wanted to go.
We all had the spaghetti with clams.
We all had the Jerry Weintraub spaghetti with clams. Absolutely.
Not the linguine with clams, the spaghetti with clams.
The spaghetti with clams. And it's there was no other place to go. That was it, right?
Yeah.
We wanted to be together and be there.
So we're doing food to go, and then we start hearing the whispers of patios, and there really aren't rules of the road. No paperwork's come out yet, and I'm just let's build a patio, and we start talking about AstroTurf and all this stuff. And my event person at the time, Nicole, comes up and says, "Why don't you just hire an event team?" And then we reached out to somebody because they're not going to be doing any events.
Yeah.
So, I get the original quote to build out the back patio, and it wasn't quite as big as it is now, and it didn't have a top to it, but it's like $75,000 or $80,000, and I'm like, we're losing 6 figures a month, in an instant. I've always been very careful. I always had a decent nest egg in the bank because just for a rainy day, you kind of never know what's going on. And now it's starting to kind of deplete. And so $75K to do that. And I'm like, okay, if customers are going to come, our customers are going to come, they're going to want a vibe, right? So how do I recreate the vibe in a parking lot? I don't want them sitting on AstroTurf, and I don't want them looking out at an alley when cars going by.
Yeah.
So we build this really cool patio. And then it's kind of successful. This is May, June. It's like, good. Let's make it a little bit bigger. It's great. And then let's make it a little bit bigger. So now I've spent, I don't know, restaurants maybe spent $175,000, $180,000 on this patio. And then we get word that like we can do the front. Okay, well, that's another $75K. And then I remember walking through the restaurant very specifically with Chef. And I said, hey, Kirsten, what are we going to do when the restaurant can be back inside and we have the patios? I go, how are we going to serve all these people? And he goes, oh, we're not. I go, what do you mean? He goes, well, we can't do that. I go, what are you talking about? He goes, kitchen's not big enough. I go, okay, how can we? Because I don't want to hear no. I don't want to hear no. Yeah. And I love chaos, right? So I'm like, I'm not giving up those patios. so he's like, we would have to literally replace everything in the kitchen with new firepower. Wow. So new ovens, new grills, new ranges, new everything. And I'm like, well, we're not making it any bigger. He goes, but what we're getting is, it's 20 years old. It's like the difference between driving a 1990 car and a 2010 car. It's just better.
Yeah.
And it's got more firepower. And I'm like, so you're saying, I'm not making this up, that we could probably handle all of it with a new kitchen? And he goes, yes.
Another check.
Okay. So now I am like, I don't want to go back out to the investors, and I am now reaching into my own pocket. And, look, who are you going to bet on? You going to bet on yourself? So that's what I'm talking about. There's moments in life, like, and by the way, I never like looked myself in the mirror and said, there's going to become a day where you're going to be called on to I was like, that's crazy. Like, you just get put in these situations and you're like, you're either going to sink or swim. What are you going to do? And so I talked to my wife, I talked to my family, and I'm like, look, you got to bet on yourself if you're going to bet on anybody. And I put the money in. We redid. I was literally like, I was spending money like a drunk sailor. So, although I don't want to disparage drunk sailors. Anyway, I redid the bar. Like I redid the stain, sanded it out and restained it. We fixed the carpeting. I think we redid the bathrooms. Now I'm redoing the kitchen. I mean, there's people that literally wanted to sit me down and go, dude, are you okay? Like, like it's the pandemic. Like people are getting crushed and you're busy spending money like it's going out of style. And I'm like, no, I think we have to get prepared. This is a moment in time that won't last forever. And we're never going to have the opportunity to resand the bar.
Yeah.
Because it takes 7 to 10 days. We're never going to have a chance to replace the tiles or replace the kitchen or redo the,
because no one's eating inside and you're only
right.
Doing the
but I
outside,
can have a little bit more time to do this stuff. And also we weren't closing. So they had to redo the kitchen while we were open.
Wow.
So we would close it also remember food to go, we would close earlier. So we would close at like 10 o'clock. They would come in at 10:30 and work all the way till like 6 in the morning.
Wow. Geez.
And then we would start the prep process because
I can't believe you got a contractor to do that. Was it your team or was it the contractor?
People need to work, right?
Anybody will do anything if you pay them more.
Yeah.
Right.
So then look, vegetables start getting delivered at 6:30, 7 o'clock. Meat, fish, produce, everything comes in every day. It has to be checked on the inventory. It has to be cleaned. It has to be put away. It has to be all the sauces that we make everything in-house. Everything we make is fresh and made in-house. So everything's got to get done every day. And, it took a little bit. And, looking back on it, it was a risk and a gamble, but it's worth it. So for a while, when they reopened indoors, they did it slowly, right? It was 25% indoors, and then it was 50% indoors. Remember sitting at catty corner tables and you couldn't sit within 6 feet, and we had those plastic shields up. I mean, like if you think about some of the things that we did and went through, it's kind of crazy. But we did all that stuff, and then eventually we were open completely inside, and that's where the kitchen was like, okay, we're getting it done, but I'm not sure we're getting it done at the level that we are as proud of. And then there was some issues with people didn't want to sit on the front patio because they wanted to sit in the middle and sit in the back. And then we had remember the security issues. So we hired 2 full-time security guards so that people felt safe no matter where they were sitting. Mm. And that was another thing that came out after COVID. It's like, who has security guards at restaurants? Well, now we've got 2 full-time that walk around, making sure that people are safe and that the perimeter's safe. So eventually the city decided to do some construction work on Melrose. And at first I was kind of upset, and we took that patio down. But what I realized is the front of the restaurant looks better without a patio there. And valet, people coming in and out, it just looked better. And then chef said to me, we can do a better product. Like
you scaled that down.
We were doing it, but it wasn't always up to our standards. So now we're kind of back into the groove of it a little bit, and it just feels better. That back patio now has a top to it. Still got great airflow. I remember when I was literally begging the city, begging the governor, begging everybody to put a roof on it. And they're like, no, it's COVID. You can't have a roof on the back patio. And I'm like, well, it'll be a roof, but it'll be like a carport. So there's air still coming in, off the sides. Course. And I'm like, you don't understand. It rains in California. They're like, it never rains in California. And I'm like, well, it didn't rain this year, but it's going to rain. And then, right, it didn't rain the next year, but then this year.
I mean, the last 3 weeks. It's been all rain.
I mean, since December, I probably would have been closed 35 days, 40 days.
Because of rain.
If we hadn't put a roof on.
I mean.
But that was another $125,000.
And by the way, for people like listening, that back patio is phenomenal. And like when you say, I love eating there, because when you say like, you don't want to be looking at an alley and, you want an ambiance. I mean, it is the most next level, like, makeshift outdoor scenario that you could possibly have.
Oh,
right? You feel like you're a
vibe.
Yeah.
More people ask to sit out there than sit in the restaurant. It's a vibe.
Yeah. I mean,
you don't feel like you're outside whatsoever.
Right. So you just kind of keep.
But you get all the benefits of the breeze and the.
Yep.
Right. So and then all of a sudden we started putting olive trees up, and then we started stringing up lights, and then like it just keeps growing. It just keeps expanding, and that's what I mean about the restaurant. It continues to have a life. It's not stuck in time.
Yeah. Right.
And it kind of continues to keep going. One of the things I do every year, every 3 years, I think I redo the bathrooms every 3 or 4 years. And it's just one of those things that kind of keeps the restaurant fresh. It kind of keeps it up to date as far as design. And I think it shows the customers and the employees that we care.
I'm going to make a really unique comparison right now. That's a lot of people wouldn't draw, but like, there's a reason South Park is in season 26 right now, because they can adapt to any current event and make it funny, or like, they make fun of everyone. They're not one-sided. No one's safe when it comes to South Park, right? But if you can continually adapt and evolve, that seems like the key to success, right? Where you're like you're saying, redoing the bathrooms, putting in the pandemic stuff, and then actually it worked out so well you kept it. I mean, those evolutionary changes seem to be really contributing to the overall atmosphere and feel. And all
absolutely. But by the way, I'll take the South Park association.
On his note, I want to do a comparison as well, because I couldn't stop thinking about it. You mentioned the drunken sailor, and I keep thinking, just like a sailor, you navigated the perfect storm.
Oh, thank you. Wow. Right.
It's stuck in my head.
And it's funny. We were talking about it earlier. You said, is it intuition or is it good business sense? And I think it's instinct.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it's instinct, and it's a lot of it understanding that you get to a point in your life where you're old enough. Like, you hear people talking about the stock market now, and there's young people that have never been through these moments. And then there's other people that have been through these moments, and you realize it's never going to be like this all the time.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you preserve capital and then make sure you're ready for the next leg up? Right. It's the same thing in my business. It was like, how do I just keep everybody together? I didn't know there was going to be employee shortage at the end of this. I had no idea. I kept everybody together because I thought it was the right thing to do, because these people have lives and families and bills to pay, and why not? Right. So it made perfect sense. And then as we came out of it and there was an employee shortage, they're like, how are you guys doing for employees? I'm like, I don't have an employee issue because we kept everybody.
Right.
But that's not the reason I did it. I'm just lucky that instinctively I just felt like it was the right thing to do, if that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. And yeah.
That's a true testament to family too. And that's what I thought about when you said it, was families that want to get your back when things go bad. Friends same, but if somebody leaves, that tells you exactly all you need to know.
It's also, part of coming in for the food and stuff like that. It's also you come in for the people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's just a true testament to your character, man, and that's, I think, a major reason as to why you've had such great success with Craig's, man. It's just, it's. I love hearing this, man, because there's so much stuff that I do know about you and the time we've all spent together and being at Craig's, but it's always fascinating to hear more and someone's process, of how they got to where they're going. We love that because in our own personal lives, like you mentioned, your intuition. My whole career, as of late, is based off my gut. Of like, that feels right. I need to do that. That's going to get me to this point. Maybe I should say to this, even if it sounds like a great opportunity. But navigating that to a degree, obviously intelligently, but it really does make a big impact on where you land, and your path's not always a straight line. So it's, sometimes you go left when you thought you were going to go right and you end up exactly where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, I think you just have to be open, and I think you have to be listening and be willing to go, oh, somebody's got a really good idea, or somebody's trying to tell me something. It may not be articulate, but there's something there. I got to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
Speaking of acting,
I was just going to bring
let's bring up my meteoric rise in the acting world.
So, I mean, I actually am very curious because you do have an extensive IMDb. Everything from Chuck and Grey's Anatomy to The OC. I mean, how did you get into acting? I know you touched on it a little bit in the beginning, but...
let's see, I moved here when I was 14, and I think the first 15 and 16, I don't think I had any friends in high school, and I would just go to school, come home, and watch TV. And TV was my best friend. And so I was going to college, and somebody, I don't even know how I got into this acting class, but it was down on South Robertson, a guy named Sal Dano, and I walked in, and there was all these familiar faces, all these people that were working. And they were in this little dark room, 25 of us, and I was watching the work, and I was like, whoa. Like, that's amazing. And I just kind of got turned on by the work. And I think there was somewhere in my subconscious that like this was a familiar place and it was a friendly place. And I don't know, I started, going to the acting class and the acting coach was, I mean, he really could see the future because he said to me, he goes, you're really good and you've got great instincts and great technique. You're not going to work. You're not going to work until you're like 45 or 50. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, you're just not baked. Like, you're not there. He goes, you'll get a few things. I mean, you'll work a little bit, but he goes, you better go find something to do. And I literally would start, I would get like, I got a lot of roles because I was really good at what I did. I knew everybody through Dan Tannis, right? So I was really easy to have on set. I would nail it in 2 takes. I wouldn't cost you any extra money, and I had somewhere to go. I didn't want any more. So I was like a producer director's dream. And,
right.
And I knew all the actors. So it was great. I was like, oh, I need a guy to do 8 lines. Call Craig. I need a guy to do this. Call Craig. It was like literally that's what I did for a living. And Josh Schwartz on the OC, I mean, I think I did 4 or 5 episodes, but I played 7 or 8 different characters. In one episode, it was a dream thing. I played 4 different characters.
If you look at it, right, like you're a great storyteller. You have an incredible amount of like charisma and you're so pleasant to be around that the hospitality and acting it almost like fits together, right? Where it's like, it's all people and relationships and how you speak to people and engage and all that, right? So like, are there anything from acting that helps in hospitality or anything in hospitality that helps in acting?
Yeah. First of all, it's like we talked about in, acting. It's like they're 18-hour days. And you really don't want to be around somebody that's unpleasant.
That's for damn sure.
Trust me, I wasn't number 1 on the call sheet. So I knew exactly what they wanted out of me. Like, be fun, hang out, hit your mark, hit your lines. I'm cutting away from you anyway, so it ain't that big. It's like I knew exactly who I was. But I think in the hospitality business, we have to get out of our own heads and figure out what people want. And I have to deliver it, right? So you having a bad day? Like, I have to notice it on your body and your face to say, oh God, Will, what's going on? Are you cool? Like, yeah, I'm just kind of a shitty day or whatever. Something happened. I broke up with my girlfriend or whatever it is. And I'm like, oh, cool. Come on, let's grab a bite to eat. And we sit and talk. And all of a sudden you walk out and you feel better. it was just because I was paying attention.
Maybe a Casamigos if it's a breakup too.
Yeah, happy, or several. But it's just it's being aware and open and honest to know what's going on in somebody's life, and being intuitive as to like. And I think my acting probably comes into play on that because look, the greatest role an actor can do is actually listen, right? It's the actual moment of taking in what somebody's saying. And that's what happens. How many times, I mean, literally at work, somebody could say to me, "Hey, Craig, how you doing?" And I could say, "Oh, horrible, blah, 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 blah." And they're like, cool. Table for 3. Can I have that one over there? And I'm like, you didn't even hear me.
Right.
Right? You didn't even hear me.
Yeah.
But whereas like where I say, "How are you?" I'm actually asking how you are. And they don't mean anything by it. And they're not being mean. It's just we're all kind of wrapped up sometimes in our own stuff. That like, there's a little joke I play sometimes at the end of the night, like, I say, "Thanks for leaving." And they go, they hear, "Thanks for coming." Right. But they're not even listening. But I said it with the right tone. Right. So we're not even like clued in.
That's pretty phenomenal.
Yeah. And I would only do it to somebody that I actually loved. And if they did catch me, we would laugh about it.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. And much like acting, it's empathy, right? Listening, the empathy, the being able to be aware of it. So.
Look, it's the people business. And if you don't really enjoy people and you don't want to make people happy, then you're not going to be successful in the restaurant business. It'll eat you up slowly because it's so hard. You've got refrigeration and plumbing and deliveries and food and employees and all kinds of other issues. The moments that happen in the actual restaurant make up for all of that stuff. And so if you don't enjoy that process, it's really going to be difficult.
Yeah.
That's pretty insightful stuff right there. I mean, honestly, I feel like this entire episode is good for like an aspiring restaurateur to like listen to and get.
Oh, I try to inspire people not to open up restaurants. I'm like, but you really because everybody sees the party. Right. Everybody sees the 8 o'clock me walking around the restaurant going, "Hey, how are you? You enjoying that? Everything good?" Blah blah. They think, "Oh my God, what a great gig!" Having a drink with a customer or something like that. They think that's the restaurant business. They didn't see the 6:30 to 9. They don't see what the chef's doing in the back of the house. They don't see what the employees are doing. They don't see all of those things that we work really hard on to make it all look effortless, right? So you better enjoy the business and you better enjoy all of that process. If you do, then by all means, I'll help you. But typically I spend a half an hour trying to talk people out of it because they think for some reason it's easy. It's like everybody's saying now. It's like, "Oh, I'm gonna have a podcast."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, good." I'm sitting here watching YouTube going, "I could do that." I'm like, "No, I can't."
I'm gonna open up at a restaurant so I can hang at the bar.
Right.
Like,
exactly. That's what they think the job is. And you're like, wait a second.
Well, it's a lot of it's the idea of it, right? Everyone wants the idea of that kind of success, or opening the restaurant, opening the bar, doing the podcast, doing all these different things. And
every time you're on a movie set, every time I'm on a movie set, I look around and I think there's 250 people that have one single focus, and I never know how they got to this point. I'm amazed. But then every night I hear somebody coming to town going, "I'm going to be a producer. I'm going to be a director." And I'm like, okay. Yeah. Because you know what? If you've got the belief and you believe in yourself, you will get it done.
That's it.
Right?
Or at least not torture yourself in the process, right?
Yeah.
And like have unrealistic goals.
But there are some people, like, look, if that's all you can do to be happy, be a director, be an actor, be a producer, you're going to make it.
Yeah.
Or be a restaurateur or whatever it is that you set your goal to. If you don't have any net underneath you, then you have no choice but to succeed.
Yeah. I've heard this quote from Tarantino that I loved, and he said, "You don't need to have a film degree. You don't need to have tons of money. You don't need to have all these things to make a film. You just have to love filmmaking. You have to love it more than anything and put all of yourself into it, and you'll make a great film."
I think that kind of goes for any business. I think, there are lots of people that just enjoy they enjoy making pizza. They enjoy baking bread. They enjoy whatever it is you enjoy.
Yeah. It's the man who enjoys the journey will go farther than the man that enjoys the destination.
Oh, God. I know a lot of actors that have gotten to the mountaintop and they're not very happy.
Yeah.
But they love the journey.
Yeah.
And they talk about the journey years as with some sort of wistfulness.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, if you think about it, you've had a lot of those conversations yourself.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I'm always trying to focus on enjoying being present in what I'm doing now, knowing that this isn't where I end or where I land and stay, but realizing like I might not be at where I want in my career. I might not have all the success or have done everything, but I'm having fun the entire time, man. I'm having a good time. I'm meeting great people along the way, you know, and it's nothing I would take back, you know?
Yeah. See, I wish I had a little bit more of that perspective like 4 or 5 years ago, because you get hit with problems and sometimes I would let it drag me down instead of saying, look, everybody's hit with problems.
Mm-hmm.
You're in business, you're in a personal life, you're married, you've got kids, whatever it is, nothing's perfect. And nothing doesn't come without a little bit of problem. So enjoy the problems. Like I didn't have that perspective. And now I do, you know, and try to overcome those things, but still do it with a smile on my face and still having fun doing it. Right. And figuring out what the next step is. What is the next thing that we're going to be doing? Like what does the world want? Where's it moving?
Yeah.
Right.
Moving with gratitude.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot, you know.
One thing I'm grateful for is that Craig's vegan ice cream on the table right there.
Yeah. So that's an interesting story, right? So we were, you know, we created this like vegan line. We're making entrees. We have appetizers, and we're thinking, okay, what are vegan people eating for dessert? Because you want to have a complete meal. And there was a young lady that one of the investors introduced me to, and she was making a coconut-based ice cream. It was vegan. It was like 8-9 years ago. And I go, nobody's going to eat that. But all right, you know what? You did me a favor. Everybody needs some help. Let me bring it in. And it was actually started selling pretty well. And I wanted to kind of help her grow it. And she decided that, you know what? This is an interesting story, that it became a job. Her making the ice cream, which was a hobby, actually became a job that she didn't enjoy. And so
she didn't
enjoy and decided that she didn't want to do this anymore.
Right.
So I said to Chef, this is another great Kirsten story. I said, Chef, what do you know about making ice cream? And he goes, nothing. I go, cool. Let's make some vegan ice cream. So I don't like coconut-based ice creams just because I think everything ends up being coconut.
Right.
I love the flavor of coconut.
It's a strong flavor.
It's just like if it's chocolate coconut, it ends up being coconut. If it's mint chip coconut, it ends up being good. So that was my only thing. And almond wasn't quite there. So we decided on cashews. And so he started coming out of the kitchen with like, taste this. And I'm like, God, that's horrible. And he was like, taste that. I'm like, oh, that's actually pretty good. I'm like, taste that. Like, that's gritty. That's like, I don't know. And he goes, no. I want all this feedback. That's the one thing I love about Chef is like, he is all in for making the best possible dish. And we both take our egos out of it. Like when people tell us they want certain dishes, I don't care if I like it or he likes it. I care that they like it. Right? So we make dishes that really kind of stand up to our standards, if that makes any sense. So finally, after like 6 months, he came out with a peanut butter chocolate chip, which is my favorite flavor. And I was like, wow, that's really good. And so I can remember, we're making it in a Cuisinart in the back of the kitchen, like literally, like it's one of those little standalone like things. He's making
Cuisinart, that's the machine.
Yeah, he's making it. He's making it like a liter at a time. So he starts making it, and I say, okay, that's good. Let's start serving it. We start serving it, and people like it, and it's selling. And then he makes the second flavor, I think, was mint chip, and that's great. And it starts putting it out, and it starts selling. And then I see somebody take it to go. Ooh. Now, where does Craig go with that? Where any moron would go, right? So I go like, oh my God, it must be a product. This is great. We're going to make a product. This is going to be our Rayo's tomato sauce. Not having any idea what a product is and how to transport one that you've frozen already.
Right.
Okay. So
that's a hurdle.
Take Recover 180 and freeze it. Good, have fun.
And then ship it across the country.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So by the way, and nobody will make it. So I remember going to, I remember going to this ice cream company in La Habra, and they've been making ice cream, I forget the name of the place. It was, I probably shouldn't even say it anyway. So anyway, I go into this room, and there's like 3 guys, and they've got like big bellies, and they're kind of heavy set. And I said, hey, I want you to taste this. We make a cashew-based ice cream. And they kind of lean back like this. They go, son, nobody's going to eat cashew-based ice cream. And we ain't making it. And I go, well, okay, here's the deal. Like, if you don't make this, you're going to be the Eastman Kodak of like ice cream makers, because at some point,
Someone's going to make it.
somebody's going to make it and you're going to be left in the dust. And they're looking at me like, who is this moron? And I go, forget me. There's just going to be another asshole behind me. So the world's going that way. And then sure enough, in the beginning, we had to buy our own cashews, have them turned into a cashew butter. Then that was shipped to a factory where they made the base. Then we would take the base and move it to another company where they would flavor it and pint it and put it into these containers. 3 separate companies.
I mean, for perspective, like, that's a lot of steps for
So-
any type of manufacturing.
right.
I'll just say that.
I mean, because I remember in the beginning they were like, you got to get a nut broker. I go, what's a nut broker?
And that broker.
I'm like, what's a nut broker? They're like, yeah, a guy
Sounds painful.
a guy that sells nuts. I'm like,
Wow.
wait, there's people that sell nuts? He's
That's
like, yeah,
wild.
like everything. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then sure enough,
You have a nut guy?
like Craig's being Craig's, the nut guy is a client. I'm like, I didn't know
amazing.
what you did for a living. He goes, yeah, I'm a nut broker. I'm like, what the hell? So I'm like,
Yeah, check out these nuts.
yeah. So then, but I remember it's like, okay, I need blonde cashews. Okay. It got specific. I need blonde cashews and I need them crushed. Okay. So now I got blonde cashews and they're getting crushed. And then I send them to the other company. He goes, yeah, they're not crushed enough. I send them back. I go, they're not crushed enough. He goes, we don't crush them twice. I go, guess what? You're going to have to crush them twice, because they wouldn't go through the machine because they had little particles.
You got to get really, really fine.
I'm like, I'm getting way too into the weeds of all this stuff, but nobody else was making it. So you got to type this 7-8 years ago where nobody was making like plant-based ice creams. So now going back to the theme of either being really hard-headed or trying to do something without a net, right? And you're forced. So if you've got a vision and you want something bad enough, you're willing to go through anything. I mean, literally, Chef and I would go 1 step up, 3 steps back. 1 step up, 3 steps back. So, but now, we're manufactured at a plant in Florida that does everything. We went from making it in a Cuisinart, a liter at a time, to I think our last order was 100,000 pints.
Holy moly.
I mean, we're now in Gelson's, Bristol, Mother's, Whole Foods. We just got into Publix in the Southeast. I mean, they're in 1,320 stores.
Like available to buy at Publix right now?
Yeah. So it just got.
So
It just,
people can, listening can go get it.
It just got into Publix. And then, on the wholesale side for shakes and stuff like that, we're at Fat Burger, Johnny Rockets, Burger Lounge.
I ordered a fat burger and a Craig's vegan chocolate shake
Right.
the
So,
other day. It was
so by the way,
amazing.
so this is what's amazing about this whole business is like you can order a regular burger and fries and still order a vegan shake, because we're all trying to flex in and out of, God, what's kind of healthy? What can I lean into? Or the dairy just doesn't make me feel good.
See, that's for me. If I can have a milkshake and a burger without extra dairy, like I'm all in on that.
Right.
Every time.
So it's not just for the strict vegans. It's for the people that are replacing a meal here and there. It's for somebody that, has a sweet tooth at 11 o'clock at night and they're, whatever we're feeling bad about or whatever, and you just want to grab a pint of ice cream while you're watching something. But by the way, that's not going to feel bad because it's made with cashews and it's got less sugar and less fat. And so it's a healthier alternative. That being said, I don't know if we're ever going to really replace all of the, full fat, full milk ice creams, but it'll be 20 or 30% of the product category. And it's only going to get more as time goes by. Right. So what we've been trying to do is create good, fun, interesting flavors, but kind of original. So we do vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, mint chip, peanut butter chocolate chip. We're kind of like the OG of ice cream flavors. And because I think a lot of people in the vegan space, they hide behind flavors that have a lot of flavor that can hide the base flavor. So in other words, if you can make a vegan ice cream that is just a plain vanilla and it tastes great, then you've hit a home run. And that's kind of what we were at. Like, so Chef and I, we always judge it by how the vanilla tastes. And then finding a manufacturer that'll stand up to your, to your principles, to the way you want it made. Because a lot of when you're manufacturing at such a high level, a lot of people want to put fillers in that may not exactly be great for you, and can make a cheaper product. And we don't want that because it basically represents us when you open up a pint. And I want to make sure that quality and that taste measures up to exactly the way we did it when we were making it out of a Cuisinart 7 years ago.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So then what do we have? We got vanilla, chocolate, strawberry, peanut butter chocolate chip, Melrose Mint chip, and then we did a coffee flavor with Chamberlain coffee. So Emma's a good friend, and so we put some of our coffee in our ice cream. It's a lot of fun.
Can I try the coffee one?
Sure. You got that one?
Yeah, I'm going to try all of them.
Yep.
I've had every single one except for the coffee.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun, and like I said, it's much like COVID and putting out patios and things like that. The ice cream business, I never had any idea. You've got big time distributors, you've got brokers, you've got retailers.
Yeah.
It's quite a process about how food actually gets to the shelf. And then not only that, how do you get consumers to pick your specific product out of a freezer full of things, right? It's really rich and creamy.
So good. Yeah.
And for the record, for people watching on YouTube, Craig brought some of them, but then the mint chip and the vanilla are directly from my freezer.
Oh no, yeah, you had the pints, which by the way, thank you. I love that. But I think as soon as you put your spoon into something, if it slips in and it's kind of rich and creamy, then it's going to be a good experience. Like our senses tell us stuff long before we taste it. And so those were all the little things that Chef and I would react to. And I think Chef did a great job of creating a really rich, creamy, emotionally fulfilling product. And that's what it really is. It's all about emotion when we eat ice cream.
I am extremely fulfilled right now.
Emotionally very happy at the moment.
Well, I felt a little uncomfortable with you looking at me saying you were fulfilled.
You used the word, I just wanted to repeat it. It's a very positive experience.
I'm just happy I didn't share that moment with you guys.
Well, by the way, we went from nutcracker to nut broker. We went from nut broker to fulfilled in all about 2 minutes.
With some deep eye contact. That's great, guys. I'm very happy for you guys with the matching sweaters too. It's great.
By the way,
Parm to table.
Yeah, it's one of we came up with it because it's like, look, I'm all about fresh, sustainable, and using the highest quality ingredients. But sometimes people say to me, where do I get my stuff? I get it at a farm. You don't think that the vegetable producer gets the best quality product.
Yeah.
That's bringing it to us. Look, if you own a restaurant and you're going out back and you're picking vegetables from the garden, I love it. And I think it's fantastic. And we have sustainable gardens at the restaurant. We have those towers where we throw off a lot of lettuce and it's great. So I'm all for it. But I just think it's a little bit of a marketing phrase that gets overplayed a little bit. And so this was our fun way of making making kind of fun of it. Parm to Table, which was our 12th anniversary sweatshirt. It's cool.
Awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, thanks for bringing that.
And they're so comfortable. They're made by Soul Angels, and they are
comfortable.
so comfortable.
Yeah.
Amazing. All right,
man.
I love it. You guys, you're killing it.
We have been excited about this one for a long time and glad we got it in.
Yeah, I did want to say also, we officially partnered with iHeart, and you are our first official podcast announcing that.
Oh my God, congratulations.
Thank you for coming on. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, official iHeartMedia podcast.
Look at you guys.
Yeah.
I love it. So there you go. So you guys started something. You believed in yourselves. You worked hard. How many hours have you put in? Think about all the time, energy, hurdles, right? And everybody going, oh God, what do I need, another podcast? Like all those things that happen.
Yeah. We didn't have the kitchen switch, but we've had full equipment switches. We've added and incorporated new stuff. We brought Spencer on board behind the cameras, and then.
Shout out Spencer.
Yeah.
Shout out Spencer.
He's been with us every step of the way.
By the way, I love the way you mess with Brock. Love the way you turn his volume up and down.
Yeah, it's great, dude.
Makes him think he's hard of hearing.
Yep. Keep doing it, Spencer. Keep doing it.
Although he's a pretty big guy to mess with. Anyway, just saying.
Yeah. It's one of those things, we're passionate about it. We love it. We enjoy it. We're spending time with friends and meeting new people as well, but getting great stories and learning, I didn't know there was a nut broker until today. So
there's apparently a lot of nut brokers.
Yeah. But really, again, thank you for coming on, man. And we will be seeing you again at Craig's.
I love it.
Yeah, man.
Good to see you, Brock.
You too, man.
Will, thanks.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much.
All right, brother.
Thank you for watching Studio 22.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
And follow our socials at Studio 22 Podcast.